Hi everyone, it's Gary Nicholson here for the Mountain Weather Information Service. This is your Planning Outlook video updated on Friday the 15th of December. Now there's changes to the recent cold pattern as we go through into the start of the new week. Milder southwesterly winds are developing for a time, so a marked thaw, quite considerable snow loss in many areas. Highest tops in Scotland may still see some freeze and thaw cycles as we go through the week, but for a time freezing levels will lift above even the highest summits. Towards the Christmas period, the trends are still looking pretty unsettled, but within that might come some colder air at times. Now we're going to start with a look at the jet stream, and in recent times it's been running in more towards the south of the British Isles, keeping us in colder conditions quite often. At the current time, the jet is creating a bit of a trough across much of northwestern Europe, pulling in a cold northerly flow. Things are set to change though as we go over a few days forwards. The jet stream is being pushed a bit further north with a ridge of high pressure building towards us from the Azores, and all of that change is in response to a push of very cold air across the eastern side of North America, and that's just having a downstream effect on the jet stream's patterns. It means that we're going to see some milder temperatures and a marked thaw over a few days. That considerable snow loss will develop as temperatures rise. This is through Monday and Tuesday, and at this point the jet stream is pushed to the north of Scotland, so frontal systems essentially north of the British Isles, but will tend to stream a bit further south across us through into Tuesday. Some more active fronts then giving some rain and stronger winds during midweek. Let's have a look at some temperatures then. This is the 850 millibar chart. It's the one we often show you. It's at 4,500 to 5,000 feet in the atmosphere, so it gives us a steer for temperatures on those highest Scottish summits. For the time being, we've got values around -5 or thereabouts through this weekend, but we see the lift in temperatures coming through into Sunday. Now, most terrain will remain frozen, but freezing levels will lift above the summits. Just for a short while, because some cooler air just tucks back in briefly from the northwest by the end of the day, overnight into Monday, but then the next push of warmer air comes in off the Atlantic. That's a more sustained push, and we then stay above freezing over a few days through into next week. The temperatures may not vary too much with height in this sort of situation, so we might find that you're something like 7 or 8 degrees at sea level, and you're only losing a few degrees with increasing height onto the higher Munros. There's your synoptic charts then just running through the next few days, and full details of course in all the written content here on the website. Saturday sees high pressure focused southwest of Britain. We're still pulling in that cold north-northwesterly, but a weak warm front encroaching into some western regions brings some low cloud to the far western coastal hills and some areas of snow flurries moving down into North Wales, some sleet and rain at lower slopes. Many places though should stay dry and bright with some sunshine, just a few snow showers maybe still towards the far north of Scotland. It's a windier day overall on Sunday. The Atlantic westerlies getting in, fronts extending in more widely, extensive low cloud, some rain, some drizzle, preceded by some snow as it runs into the cold air across the Highlands, largely all turning to rain. And then just as that cold front moves in from the west, those freezing levels just dropping as we mentioned. Now, Monday's an awkward one. Not a bad day, really, for many places. It looks as though we're just ahead of the next fronts coming in. A warm front coming in off the Atlantic, bringing low cloud mostly to the far western coastal hills in Scotland, some drizzly rain in. But we're just into that chillier air mass that came in late on Sunday, and brighter skies may well have come through behind that system. So a cold day is still possible. Temperatures near to freezing or just below, but temperatures will rise from the west as that warm front moves in later on. So we'll see the freezing levels go above the summits, but most terrain, higher terrain, still remaining frozen, so the snow cover's not going too far too quickly at this stage at least. Things are really changing as we go through Monday night into Tuesday. This is where the much milder air will have swept in. We're into a broad southwesterly, a warm sector that's across the British Isles. We've got lots of low cloud on western mountains, drizzly rain coming in, and strong winds too. One of those days where the winds strengthen very quickly with increasing height. So in the valleys and the glens you might not find too much, but get on some exposed ridges and those winds will be considerable in their strength. All that just exacerbates the snow loss, and I think through Tuesday it will be one of the quickest days that snow will be disappearing. Just patches left, I think, on many higher areas by the end of the day. For Wednesday, it's high pressure still towards the south, waving fronts moving in from the Atlantic, basically just a conveyor belt of moisture moving in. It may give some locally persistent rain, more likely towards western Scotland, further south just drizzly bits and pieces, I think, into West Wales, and the far north and northeast of the Highlands probably faring best for being driest with highest cloud bases. It's still tricky with the details, and as we go further towards the Christmas weekend, just to run through the model charts, and don't take the detail absolutely literally, but we can try and get a trend. This is through Thursday into Friday. High pressure is centred quite strongly towards the southwest, and fronts will be passing across the north of Scotland. Maybe some colder air just getting drawn in as we go towards Friday, just as the wind briefly looks like turning north-northwesterly, so the freezing level could drop to bring some snow back to the Northern Highlands in particular. Looks as though we've got a ridge of high pressure that tries to topple through in the first part of the weekend, but fronts quickly come back from the Atlantic. So the idea of being fairly changeable, and temperatures a bit up and down from day to day, I would have thought, as we head through the weekend. It seems that changes are trying to develop into a generally more unsettled theme as we head towards Christmas Day. That's the Monday. We've got a deep area of low pressure centred around Iceland, and fronts driving in from the Atlantic look as though they're a bit more active, and eventually a stream of low pressure systems look like driving in to lower latitudes. In other words, they're coming more directly across the British Isles, heading through the Christmas to Boxing Day and even the Wednesday period of that following week. Now, it's a long way to go before we can really nail down the day-by-day details. It's not looking that great, really, it must be said. The unsettled conditions may well be stormy if these incoming lows are quite active. And this chart is the pressure anomaly for a 7-day period running just through the New Year period, and it shows essentially lower pressure is expected around the British Isles. The jet stream driving quite a long way to the south. It goes somewhere through here. We might just pull in some colder air from the northwest within those systems, so again you could just have a risk of some snow mixed in with incoming frontal systems coming off the Atlantic, so one to watch there. We could find colder air draining back in. Notice the big zone of high pressure that's centred around polar regions. That could be a player further down the line because it could set up blocking in the atmosphere, and essentially that will cut off the jet stream's influence to some degree, and it may allow colder air to return as we go further down the line. So we'll firm up on some of those Christmas details as we go into next week, so keep up to date with us here at the Mountain Weather Information Service. Thanks for watching this video today, and bye for now.